Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to talk about the spiritual mastermind and how we can use it to keep ourselves effective in times of chaos. I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of stuff going on in the world concerning a virus. Now at first glance, what we usually teach here is that the mind is more powerful than we might realize, and therefore we should control our own minds so that fear and panic do not control us, especially during times of chaos. Because sometimes we face these moments in life. Of course we hope they never occur, but currently we're in one. So how are we going to deal with it? Well, I think the first thing you want to understand again is the power you hold with the imagination that is inside of your consciousness. So the spiritual mastermind is a concept that was originally phrased in a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. In it he talked about the power we can wield if we work together with a group of people, one person or more, towards a common purpose. So you set a goal together and you both or more of you decide that this is where we're going to go with our lives, this is what's going to happen, and we're going to make it happen. Now these individual members of a mastermind group can have their own talents and abilities to make it easier to achieve said goal. So if you think about it, a movie, when it's made, is basically a mastermind concept in and of itself. The actors and the crew members all have their own individual roles in the production of the movie in order to get the best result possible. So they're clear on where they want to go and they work together to make it happen. So in times of chaos, especially if you're sort of locked in your home or for whatever reason you're unable to meet up with people as easily as you're used to, the spiritual mastermind is simply a way of doing the same method through the imagination. Now what does that mean exactly? Well, the way I do it is sometimes when I feel like I'm not able to talk to someone that could help me out physically speaking, I can always hold a conversation, spiritually speaking, with someone I admire. So you can play a little game with yourself that at first sounds absurd, but it actually works. It helps to change your own state of mind for the better. You take a person you admire, that you think could help you out in your situation, and mentally you hold a conversation with them and listen as though they reply to your questions. So I know many people are very fascinated by the stuff Neville Goddard talked about, and I've once had an experience where I fell asleep and there I saw a person completely the embodiment of light, a light body. And I knew intuitively that was Neville Goddard himself. I even called out to him. He replied and it was his voice. And it was his voice based on what we know from records that still exist to this day, but it was a line that he never said in any of his lectures to begin with. So I actually had proof that it is possible to hold a spiritual mastermind where you communicate with people who might not physically be here with you or might have been long gone by now even entirely. But you can still get the support on a deeper part of your own spiritual self. So if you're currently going through a chaotic mess, if you're currently kind of distracted and confused on what to do with the time you currently have, well then I suggest you experiment with this concept. How do you start? Where do you start? Well, it's actually very simple. I suggest you actually start doing this before you go to sleep in general, because then is when the mind calms down the most. But what you want to do is mentally see the person that you would like to talk to inside your consciousness, inside your imagination. You mentally see them in front of you. And then you ask them a question and you listen as though they replied. And you know what's going to happen? You actually are going to get answers to the questions you say within your consciousness. So you can have a question right now, but on a sort of surface level, you might not know the answer right away. But in that calmness, the answer will come to you. It is essentially the universe replying to your request. So if you're struggling with something and you're unable to do physically anything about it, you might want to calm down inside consciousness and ask the deeper self that you really are. That part of you that is connected with the spirit of life. And once you do that, you're going to find all sorts of wonderful ideas start to flow to you. You could ask yourself the question, what should I do in this time of global panic? Because physically we're aware of it. We can't deny it's happening, but yet we also don't want to be influenced by it too much. I mean, the physical world will always have an effect on us, But we also want to be aware that we can control our own minds and still direct where we're going to go with it, individually speaking. And it's once mass panic starts to set in, people lose track of their individualism and they become, well, a chaotic mess altogether. It's like a pile of energy that's exploding in all directions, and it's expressing itself with and through the bodies of mankind. Because the body is the instrument of the mind, as we keep saying. This is so important for you to grasp. So this is what I suggest you do, especially during these times, is to simply play a little game with yourself. Hold wonderful conversations inside your imagination. And then if you do it right, you're going to discover for yourself that you can ask yourself, the deeper self, questions. And receive answers on what to do and how to behave and how to go about your business during these times. And it will help you. It will help make it so that you at least can stay calm and relaxed within your very self. Because the calmness is going to be your weapon in times of chaos. It's once you lose that calmness, you can't decide and act and think properly any longer. And that's what we want to avoid. That's what it's our responsibility as an individual. So the spiritual mastermind is simply a concept where you start to imaginatively hold conversations with people you admire, and you imagine them being interested in helping you achieve a certain goal or result in your life. So you imagine these people you admire actually replying to you inside your consciousness to whatever you're struggling with, and listen attentively as though they were talking to you, and you'll get some wonderful answers. In fact, if you do this intensely enough, you can have the same experience I had, which is when the body falls asleep entirely. You find yourself in another dimension of your being, holding an actual conversation like you are doing in your waking life with another person. But in this case, you'd be holding a conversation with a person that isn't even physically in your life at all to begin with. Like I had with Neville, he's not even physically alive on this planet anymore, but you can still actually hold conversations with him and even meet him, as he would say, in another dimension of your being. So keep this all in mind, and know, in times of stress, the greatest test for us all is to keep controlling our minds and to discover how well we are at controlling our minds. I mean, once stuff goes haywire, it's easy to lose track of this power we hold within ourselves, but it's also the greatest test to keep strengthening that awareness and power that we actually hold, to control the mind in spite of all circumstances. Because the physical life is only temporary. You want to discover the immortal self, the eternal concept behind life itself. Because once you can grasp that part, it becomes easier and easier to at least remain calm. Remain calm. Do not be afraid. Let not your heart be troubled. And with that being said, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And never forget, dear viewer, that we are the dreamers.